Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. It is the weekend catch-up show. We're going to be looking back at all the weekends, All-Ireland Senior Football Championship action, and the weekend's All-Ireland Senior Hurling Championship action as well. We'll be looking back through, an action-packed weekend in both football and hurling. Plenty of talking points, plenty of discussion around the weekend's games. Some big storylines in there as well. You had Cork versus Kerry, which I'm sure Matthew will have a lot to say about in what was, one of the games of the weekend. Games of the decade, I've heard as well, up there with maybe Galway Armagh from a couple of years ago. And then, some other kind of interesting talking points as well. Big wins for Galway. Donegal down, getting a late win versus Fermanagh. Mayo coming through Leitrim, albeit a lot closer than people expected. And we'll be cracking on with the hurling action as well, and certainly a lot to discuss there a little bit later on in the show. So, joined by Matthew Hurley from the Gaelic Statsman podcast, so make sure to check that out when you get a chance. But I suppose, firstly, Matthew, an action-packed weekend in the championship. It felt like this was the weekend really where the championship came alive, especially in football anyway, and obviously the first weekend for hurling as well. I'd imagine mixed reactions as a Cork fan waking up on this wonderful Easter Monday.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks for having me on again, Aaron. Was at the game obviously on Saturday with the football, and obviously coming out of the ground, you're thinking what a game of football it was. Privileged to be there, privileged to be in the media area for that game as well. And it was just a brilliant game of football. Just unfortunate the result didn't go Cork's way in the end, and there was a lot of incident. Obviously, we'll get into it once we discuss the game. But it was a very good game of football. Coincidentally, a few people obviously said that Galway Armagh from a few years ago was put in as the game of the decade along with this game. I was at both games, so maybe if I just go to any Gaelic football game, it's going to be game of the decade. But look, that's another discussion for another day. And then as for the hurling, coming out of that, if this makes sense, I was more disappointed coming after the result of the hurling rather than the football, because the football, it showed that Cork are a serious team and we are making strides to be up there among the top dogs once again. The hurling was very, very frustrating. 12 points up at half time. You kind of have to close that out once you have that margin. Be upset with them, the Clare antics maybe in the second half, maybe goading Cork into a few things, a few fouls here and there off the ball. Obviously, Shane Barth fell for it and got the red card, which I'm sure Shane would have been disappointed with his challenge there. But even to let his 7-point lead slip with 2 minutes to go as well. I know Peter Duggan's goal was amazing, but probably Cork should have done a lot better defensively there as well. I'm sure Pat Ryan will have a lot to clean up on in terms of trying to get that Liam McCarthy Cup later on in the summer. But long summer left to go, long Munster Championship left to go. Cork will have to part that and just write it off as a bad half of hurling. But in the other games, there was some decent games. I was watching Tipperary Limerick was the other game I watched as well, and the Tip was very impressive in Semple Stadium as well. And some other results, obviously Down coming back against Fermanagh was a massive result for them. The Donegal Monaghan controversy with the hooter. It ended up being the correct call from David Calder, but a few Monaghan fans were very, very disappointed. I can understand why with them, the confusion under the new rules and all that as well. To be honest, the only probably it was two disappointing games over the weekend, probably Kilkenny, Galway in the hurling, and coincidentally Galway in the football as well against Roscommon. It was the Galway and Roscommon didn't seem like, much of a contest really after Matthew Tierney goals, and then in the hurling, both in the crowd and on the pitch, it didn't look like a championship game at all. That's another conversation for the Leinster hurling championship as well, and something that probably needs to be discussed further. But some other than that, some very good games this weekend, and looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Gavin there in the comments with a few different chats around Roscommon. We'll definitely get onto that a little bit later. But look, we'll start with the Cork and Kerry game, because it was certainly one of the biggest talking points from the weekend. It was Cork 125, Kerry 321. It goes to extra time. It has everything. It has red cards. Brilliant goals, controversial refereeing decisions, and for so long the upset felt like it was on the cards. As you said, like, you were in the media box as a Cork man. What did you make of it all? Because it was it was one hell of a game.
It was kind of a game for the ages in many ways, and I think it's kind of like a situation like Well, I wouldn't like to compare to another game from last weekend or whatever, but it's kind of the same situation as Armagh and Antrim. The underdogs did themselves really justify themselves really, really well, but also equally the favourites, which were Kerry in this instance, had a brilliant performance, and that's what got them over the line in the end. And no doubt about it, if Kerry weren't on their A game or they weren't up for this game in Páirc Uí Chaoimh, they wouldn't have got out of this game, in my honest opinion. So it was a brilliant win for Kerry in that light as well. And looking at the extra time stats as well, as Kerry had 4 shots, converted every single one of them. I think it was 71% shot accuracy in the second half and extra time combined, which is an amazing statistics from a Kerry point of view. And that's what got them over the line in the end. Dave Clifford's hit 9 points. Brilliant performance from him. Probably wasn't at his best in previous games against Cork, but that was certainly a vintage David Clifford performance. Sean O'Shea, a long-term injury, obviously, but a brilliant performance after coming onto the pitch, getting that goal, which I'm sure we'll discuss in the controversial decisions section in just a sec. Joe O'Connor was absolutely excellent in midfield, and I think he was a great out ball for Shane Murphy after coming on, because made no mistake about it, when Shane Ryan went off injured, I think Kerry kind of lost the kick-out battle slowly but surely. Cork were starting to get over them, but Shane Murphy, he held his nerve, to be fair to him, kicked the ball out to Joe O'Connor for Joe O'Connor's goal. Joe claimed the ball, and then it was a brilliant finish. And I know in the heat of battle you're thinking, oh, Cork have lost this game or whatever, but you just have to put your hand up and just accept the brilliance of that goal. Like I was looking back at the clip there, Brian O'Driscoll did everything in his power to stop that shot, but it was just an absolute rasper from Joe O'Connor. You just couldn't stop it. But as heartbreaking as that was, Cork could have got a goal down the other end about 30 seconds later. Conor Callahan going through and goal, but just skidded wide, and that was a big chance to regain the lead from a Cork point of view. Colin O'Mahony had a few 2-pointed efforts late on as well, which went agonisingly wide both times. Kerry got over the line, but you could see Jack O'Connor's reaction from late on in the game, that this meant the world to Kerry, because they knew they were in a battle, and it does signify the talk during the week about this game was, is the Munster rivalry dead? Is there any point of Cork and Kerry and things like that coming out in the media? Both sides proved in this game that it certainly isn't dead. And I know there was only 14,000 or so at this game, but the atmosphere that was generated in it, the challenges that were going in, it was like the old days in terms of Munster Championship, and credit to both teams in difficult weather conditions as well. Brilliant game of football, some brilliant moments as well. Obviously, there was a few refereeing decisions, which we'll get into, but just before I switch over to you, Aaron, you have to give credit to Cork, obviously. Brilliant performance. A lot of people might have questions over the last few years. Is Cork football going on a downward spiral, with the under-20 struggling, with the minors potentially struggling? We'll see the minors in the next few weeks now. But this was probably a tough time for Cork football, considering the players that left the panel as well in the off-season, the likes of Jack Callahan, the likes of Stephen Sherlock, Fionn Hurley, Damien Gore, Kevin Vlahovic, all them players. But the players that have come in for Cork have really stepped up. Sean McDonagh, excellent 2-pointer the other night against Kerry, and has really done well in this campaign for Cork. Sean Brady, I know he got the red card, but up until that point, up until that harsh red card, may I add as well, was absolutely excellent at cornerback. Sean Walsh, I thought he claimed an awful lot of ball when he came on in midfield as well. I thought he was very, very good. Brian O'Driscoll has flourished the 2-point arc route. He's the current joint second top scorer for playing the championship with 11 points as well. I think it's 4 2-pointers in the championship as well. Absolutely excellent performance from him, and he's really staking his claim as one of the main players in this Cork team. And you have to give a lot of credit to them. And what I will say, during the league, I've watched every Cork game, and I would say the only game where Cork were completely out of depth was probably the Roscommon game, where we got absolutely slaughtered that night. Other than that, we have been competitive in each and every game. And when you look at even the 2 games we lost in the league, Monaghan, we dominated midfield, in my opinion. And Monaghan fans were speaking to the Cork fans afterwards and saying the size of our players, the strength and conditioning of our players is absolutely brilliant. And the Monaghan fans were delighted to get the winning in the scheme that day. Against Down, we missed a point for a 2-pointer late on. There was a controversial goal for Down late on as well, which won them the game in Park Esther that day. And every other game, other than those 3 games that we lost, we won. We got 8 points on the board. That was our highest points total in the top 2 divisions since 2015, when we got to a league final against Dublin in Croke Park. So I think this Cork team is making some serious strides at the moment. It's just about maintaining that kind of momentum into the All-Ireland series now. It's a provincial finals next away from home. It could be a Clare, could be Louth or Kildare, could be a Mayo even. I'd fancy our chances against Mayo at this present moment in time. Look, they have to be given a lot of credit. John Cleary does as well after kind of a tricky situation in the off-season. But yeah, just a brilliant game of football, and credit to both sides in difficult weather conditions too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like it was a cracking game, and I do think as well, like with the Cork and Kerry rivalry, like more often than not over the last couple of years, it has been more of a game than it hasn't been. You know, you think back to 2020. I know you had, I think, 2 games in 21 and 22 where they were, or maybe there was one of the years you didn't play them, but over, like, I think the 2 games after the 2020 game were a little bit one-sided for Kerry, but last season it was very close. Like you pushed Kerry very close last year in their own backyard as well. And then this year, like, it was really, really close. And to be fair to Cork, like you often, like, you beat Donegal last year, beat Mayo the year before. Like I had a feeling you would. I didn't think it would be this close. Now, to be fair, I didn't think you'd play this well. And I didn't think it would go to extra time. I thought the game will be close, and then like when Sean O'Shea gets that goal, you know, Kerry are 5-6 ahead going into the final couple of minutes, and then they just see it out. But that wasn't the case at all. Like it was really, really close, and from a Cork point of view, definitely a lot of positives to take. Sean says here, to think we thought the new rules would result in a lot of one-sided games. I think it's only the traditional defensive teams that really have difficulty with these new rules. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I was probably one of the people that did think we would get a lot of one-sided games with the new rules. But no, it's worked a complete opposite way, and it's strange. It seems to be a lot of the kind of lesser teams that are like making use of the new rules. They're using the new rules to their advantage, where I feel like a lot of the bigger teams are probably feeling like they don't need the 2-pointers. We saw that with Mayo versus Leitrim. We saw that at times with Dublin against Wicklow, and even Kerry as well. I think they only kicked maybe 1 or 2 pointers, 2-pointers in the game. Very few anyway, from what I remember. So
1 2-pointer, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was just the David Clifford one, wasn't it?
Yeah, in extra time, yeah.
So there you go. Like, I feel like a lot of the bigger teams are maybe feeling like they don't need them maybe as much as the likes of a Cork and whatnot. But in terms of the decisions, look, we do have to mention them. You know, you had the Alex Brady or the Sean Brady red card, which was crazy decision in my opinion. You had Paddy Clifford getting sent off, which I think was justified, but a lot of people do seem to disagree on that. And then I didn't even really realize it at the time, but the Sean O'Shea goal as well, in terms of steps. Which, to be fair, Brit Stack did mention it in commentary, but having looked at it back, I think she was right to be fair. But yeah, like in terms of some of those decisions, what we were talking on all them.
Going in a chronological order, then I think the Paddy Clifford one. Look, a lot of people call me boy, so I think looking at it in real time, I thought it was a sending off. I thought it was high. Yes, Matty Taylor, there's an argument. He made a meal of it a small little bit, but at the same time, it's high. It is a high challenge. It's a red card. And I remember 2 years ago in Páirc Uí Chaoimh as well, Dar Moynihan, if you remember this tackle, Aaron, on Kevin O'Donovan, that was a high challenge that day. And arguably, that should have been a red card as well. That was given a yellow card that day. That decision was overruled kind of by the other incidents that went on during the game with the David Goff and Sean Powter incident, the black guard and the penalty from outside the area. That was that same game, and Dar Moynihan got away with a red card that day. So in that instance, I do think Paddy deserved to get sent off. Look, it's a harsh. Would I say it's hard? Well, it's unlucky, I would say. Like, he put his arm in the wrong place, and it just looked really, really bad at full speed. It looked like a very, very high challenge, and I thought it was justified. I thought it was a red card, in all honesty. A lot of people, I do guess what other people kind of think in terms of why it wasn't a red card. Maybe Matty Taylor made a meal of it, but look, in my opinion, it was a red card. Going on to the Sean O'Shea steps, obviously it is steps, and I look back at the tape, I look back at the video, and I counted. Sean O'Shea made 9 steps for the goal, and you're not supposed to do that. It should have been, but at the same time, there was a foul on Sean O'Shea in the lead up, so the ball should have been brought back for a free. but it was a crucial moment in the game. Kerry should have got 1 point, not 3. And yeah, I think it was steps, no doubt about it. And that's probably the easiest decision out of the 3. The Sean Brady incident, look, in fairness to John Cleary, I was saying, look, the media were talking to him afterwards, and he did say the Paddy Clifford one was in some cases it was a yellow card. It would have been accepted if it was a yellow card. In all fairness to John Cleary, saying that, he did say about the Sean Brady incident, he didn't see how on earth is that a red card for Sean Brady. When you look at it, Colin Parkinson, he has controversial thoughts on X, to say the least. He was saying that Joe O'Connor made a meal of it and dived and things like that. And he was saying he was a disgrace and things like that. Look, yes, Joe O'Connor kind of made a meal of it, but the same, but he was fouled. He was fouled. Let's call a spade a spade. It was a free, but the hit went nowhere near Joe O'Connor's face. It went across his chest. I don't see how that could be a red card for Sean Brady. And I genuinely think it was something like maybe the ref and the linesman thinking, we have to even this up. That's my only general thought on this. And it's just harsh enough on Sean Brady, who's had an amazing season in his first kind of senior campaign as a Cork senior footballer. And just for his match to end like that is very, very harsh. And I don't think it was a red card personally. And it did swing the game in some ways, but you have to give credit to the Cork. They did fight back. They did take the lead in extra time through, first of all, an Owen McSpeedy 2-pointer, then Conor Callaghan got a 1-pointer, and then obviously the Joe O'Connor goal happened. So you have to give Cork a lot of credit for biting back at that particular moment in time, but you have to feel as well, if Sean Brady didn't get sent off at that moment, Cork probably would have won the game. So there is a lot of hurt over that incident, obviously, but yeah, honestly, Aaron, I don't think it was a red card. I think it was very, very harsh on the young lad. And no, I don't think, just to simplify it, I don't think the hit went anywhere near Joe O'Connor's face. That's just my honest opinion.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. And I think to be honest with you, I think if the Paddy Clifford red card doesn't happen, I don't think he gives a red card there. And I think the linesman getting involved as well. I think it was probably a case of trying to maybe even it up a little bit. And the ref maybe did bottle it ever so slightly as well, given the red. But yeah, there was some very poor decisions in there. I suppose the way Kerry just kept finding an answer, a part of me nearly wouldn't have been surprised if they had found an answer anyway, because that was it felt like every time Kerry needed to score a point or needed to get a goal, they would find something. And even that Joe O'Connor goal, it was mental because they were only a point behind. And all they needed was a point to level the game or maybe a 2-pointer. To go for the goal there was mad, because in considering if that hits the bar, goes wide, or the keeper saves it, you probably win the game. Do you know what I mean? Because you have possession at that stage. But in terms of Kerry, it is interesting. I agree with you. I don't think Kerry were poor in the game necessarily. I think there's definitely parts of their game they do need to improve on. I think especially around kickouts, there was a lot of handling errors. I felt from Cork when they won the ball, but I thought from kickouts they struggled a little bit. In terms of accuracy, they were obviously very good in front of goal. They probably struggled to create chances or control the game. And I felt like they allowed Cork a lot of the time to get a run on them. And every time Cork ran at them, Kerry did struggle. I thought defensively they definitely did struggle. But could there be any worries there from a Kingdom point of view? Or is this a case of, we have seen this with Jack O'Connor's Kerry before, where they can at times look a little bit sluggish in the earlier part of the year. But of course, as we know, when it gets to Croke Park football, that's when Kerry clicks. So could there be any concerns for Kerry at the minute?
I genuinely don't think so. And I have said in previous seasons that Kerry are lacking in defensive structure and things like that. And they are a small bit to a certain extent, but I think their attack is so lethal when they go up the field. I mentioned the stat earlier on the shot as well. In the second half and extra time combined, 71% shot accuracy. That's absolutely superb. In extra time, when the bodies are tired, when the weather gets worse as well, 100% shot accuracy out of 4 shots. Compare that to Cork, I think they had 14 shots in extra time, converted 4. I think it was a 29% shot accuracy. Kerry were absolutely superb in that period. What I will worry about from a Kerry point of view as well is kind of kickouts. In the first half, they had a 60% retention rate, won 6 kickouts out of their 10. And from the second half onwards, they only won 50% of their own kickouts, 12 out of a possible 24. And even you see for the Chris O'Jones goal, it was kind of a mess at that stage for Kerry, like kicking out the ball, and it was kind of no communication between the defence and the midfield, or even the goalkeeper at that particular moment in time as well. That probably needs to be brushed on from a Kerry point of view. But I think there's a few elements. The main element being Shane Ryan going off injured. I think when he was in goal for Kerry, I think he did very, very well on the kickouts and his distribution, to be fair to him as well. When he went off injured, Shane Murphy did well, obviously, to save the Chris O'Jones shot in extra time. But in general play, I think he did struggle in kickouts as well. So that might be something that Kerry needs to brush up on, building up a kind of a relationship just in case Shane Ryan does get an injury again. I don't think, by the looks of it, I don't think it's too serious, and hopefully for Shane Ryan's case, it isn't too serious in terms of an injury. But if Shane Murphy is to come on again, Shane Murphy needs to build kind of a communication with his defence, his midfield, just to sort out those sort of problems as well. As I mentioned there, their attack is absolutely flying as well. David Clifford, I think 89% shot accuracy across the whole game, which is absolutely superb. Paul Gainey proved very, very threatening throughout the game. Dylan Gainey was very good in the forward line. Killian Spillane kicked a nice score when he came on. Sean O'Shea, Joe O'Connor, Miall Burns looked dangerous at some stages in extra time as well. So there are positives for Kerry, and I do think they're still a very, very good side. And as well as that, they got a massive test in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. It wasn't as if Kerry were way off colour.
Yeah.
And Cork kind of had an underdog mentality. Cork have been threatening Kerry for a few years now, but this was the biggest, fright of their life that Kerry would get in Munster over the last few seasons. And it was almost kind of weird to see, like, considering or comparing the 2020 game. It was almost like Kerry playing Brino Ugly and wing forward. It was kind of like they signed their own death warrant that day. And Cork kind of copped onto that, and they knew they were going to cause an ambush that day. In this sort of a game, Kerry kind of did most things right, but Cork were absolutely brilliant on the underdogs tag, and you have to give Cork a lot of credit for that. And Jack O'Connor actually mentioned in his post-match interview as well, he did say directly to the media, he did say, I did tell you all a few weeks that Cork were going to put up a challenge. And he definitely said that as well. And he was saying that Shane Murphy proved to be a brilliant replacement in some aspects for Shane Ryan, made a brilliant save for Chris Ogue as well. Their calmness in front of goal as well. He thought they were brilliant. And usually, if a manager of the favourites was in an interview afterwards, like let's say Jim Gavin for Dublin, or when Mayo were down as James Horan for Mayo, they might kind of nitpick over certain instances and things like that, and they would say that the kickouts went wrong, the defence went wrong, the attack went wrong, something like that. Jack O'Connor was all praise for his Kerry players afterwards, and that probably speaks volumes as well at the amount of pressure that Kerry were under this game. And you could see Jack's reaction at the end of it as well. They were relieved coming out of it. And I think this will bring them on. I think they'll win the Munster final easily now against Clare. But I do think it will bring Kerry on once it comes to All-Ireland quarterfinal, All-Ireland semi-final stage. Because you looked at the All-Ireland quarterfinal, or even the semi-final against Armagh last year. The main kind of asset to that was Kerry weren't tested properly. I know Cork beat them by 3 points in Kilkenny, but it was almost like Cork kind of retreated into their shell in that second half in that particular day. And even against Derry in the quarterfinal, Kerry didn't get tested at all in Croke Park. They have now got one test out of potentially, and hopefully for Jack O'Connor's sake, a few more leading on down the line as well. And I think that is a positive for Kerry moving forward as well. And I do think I would still have them as All-Ireland favourites because of their attack singly as well. Like, if you give David Clifford space, he's going to hurt you. Paul Gain is absolutely superb as well. But Sean O'Shea coming back into the team. Paulie Clifford, I know, like, there could be, an appeal kind of thing with the CCC. I don't know what's the situation with Paulie Clifford. But even if he doesn't play against Clare, I think they should beat the banner pretty easily. Rory Murphy, I know he came off at half time, but showed some bright sparks in the first half. While I was going into this game, thinking and looking at the Kerry team, I was thinking this is going to be, Rory Murphy's an excellent footballer, but this was going to be a pressure situation for this young lad. And how would he kind of cope in this kind of environment in a Munster derby like this? He was brilliant in the first half at stages. Joe O'Connor's definitely staked his claim in midfield, and this is a Kerry team without Dermot O'Connor as well. And the more midfielders that stand up in terms of winning kickouts and leading on the team, the better for Kerry. And I think Joe O'Connor is a massive example of that. Barry Dan O'Sullivan, to be fair to him, had a very good performance in midfield as well. So in all, I don't think it's a bad thing for Kerry. I think genuinely it is a good thing that they got this test. that they showed resolve even when Cork were on top in certain parts of the game, and they got up with the win ultimately. And I think that's a positive sign for Kerry moving forward.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, and Gavin says here it might help that Kerry got a test. They were caught in the hop against Armagh last year. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like I think it could definitely stand to Kerry. Kaylin says here, Donegal man here, serious performance by Cork. It was inspirational, and the atmosphere the Cork crowd made was mad. Kerry showed great composure, but Cork left that one behind. Serious team when they gel. Yeah, absolutely. Like even though there wasn't, like, I suppose a lot was made maybe of the lack of maybe fans, and maybe it was probably where the fans were as well, like with the cameras and everything else. It looked like there was no one there, but obviously it was just the way the cameras were positioned. There was obviously 14,000, but yeah, they generate a brilliant atmosphere, I felt. You could really feel it, like every time Cork got closer and closer to maybe pulling off the upset, the more the kind of the louder the kind of crowd got. Liam says here, Armagh Tyrone game of the championship coming up. Yeah, absolutely. That poses to be a cracking game this weekend. The other game in Munster, Clare 218, Tipperary 115. Big result in the end for Clare. Mark McInerney getting 2-4 in the end, being the difference from a Clare perspective. Look, they were expected to win the game, so it's probably not that big of a surprise. Maybe Tipperary did push them a little bit closer than people thought, though, given that Tipperary are, you know, when you look at it, a mid-table Division 4 side, Clare, a side who were very unlucky not to get out of Division 3. So at the same time, Tip can take a bit of confidence from this game as well.
Maybe so, yeah. And it does probably show that Tipperary football is slowly but surely trying to make it the way back to Division 3, where Tipperary should be. Division 3, Division 2, that's where Tipperary should be. And I think Philly Ryan and his management team do know that. This was a game kind of that got away from them. They missed a penalty early on from Stephen O'Brien, and from then on, I think Clare dominated this game. Mark McInerney, as you mentioned, with 2-4 this game, 2-2 from play. Emma McMahon, 5 points for play, is a serious performance from him. Owen Cleary, 4 points. Aaron Griffin, 2 points. Keelan Sexton, 2 points. So the band are coming back together for Clare, and Peter Keane seems to be doing a decent enough job at Clare. Obviously, I think Kerry in 2 weeks' time with Killarney, I think, honestly, Aaron, I can't see anything other than a comfortable Kerry win, in all honesty. And it's going to be very difficult to see how Clare get any joy out of that good win in this game for Clare, to get over Tipperary. And yeah, you know, it was a good confidence booster for Clare to get past a county like Tip, who they lost in 2020, remember, in a quarter-final, where Clare were decent enough favourites going into that game. Clare were Division 2 at the time, Tipperary were lower end Division 3, and Tip still won that game in Semple Stadium. So I think from that standpoint, it was a good thing that Clare did get over the line this game. But I think the elephant in the room is, Aaron, and this doesn't only affect like the excitement in terms of Munster finals and things like that. It does affect other teams in terms of the Tailteann Cup and Sam Maguire kind of stranglehold around the middle. Clare reaching a Munster final, I think the Munster Council, if Kerry do give Clare a hammering in 2 weeks' time, I do think the Munster Council need to look at this. I'll be honest. You looked at the semi-final between Cork and Kerry. It was an absolute brilliant game of football. 2 sides going at it. It seemed like equally matched sides going at it in that day as well. And Kerry were tested to their pin or collar. And even when you look at the last 3 years, the margins between Cork and Kerry and Clare and Kerry, in the Cork and Kerry games, it was 2 points, 3 points, and 2 points after extra time. So that's 7 points. Clare, I think in 2023, it was about 15, 16 points. I think it was off the top of my memory. Last year was 8 points. So that's 24. If this is a 10 point, that's 34 points in 3 years. I do think something needs to be done about that in terms of raising the profile of the Munster Championship. Something needs to be done in terms of this. And look, I think genuinely, I think Clare and Cork should be on one side of the draw. That's my honest opinion on it. Because when you look at it from the cold light of day, in the last 2 years, Clare, all they had to do to get to the Sam Maguire Cup was in 2024 beat Waterford, and they're there. 2025 beat Tip, they're there. And this isn't just like a Munster issue or Cork issue. It's an issue more for Offaly as well. Because genuinely, I think the way Offaly play football, they probably deserve Sam Maguire football more than Clare do. And I think that is an issue in its own right. And look, if we see this year Kerry giving Clare a hammering first of all in Fitzgerald Stadium, but Clare winning 0 games, getting 0 points at the group stage of the All-Irelands, something needs to be looked at in terms of that. and we cannot allow this to happen again. I don't know how you kind of get around it, but it is a serious issue in Gaelic games, not just for Munster, as I mentioned before, but for other counties like the likes of Offaly, Kildare, Louth, who are in and around that area.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, I think it is something they need to look at. We've been mentioning it the last couple of years. Like, I don't know how the same draws keep happening in Munster as well. I get that they have to keep Clare and Kerry on separate sides of the draw because they got to the final. But I do think as well, like, they do need to mix that up and change it. Like that, they don't do that in every other province. So, like, I'm not too sure why that has to be a thing in Munster. So it's definitely something I think they need to look at in my opinion. But yeah, Gavin says here, yeah, exactly. Louth possibly being in the Tailteann because of the Munster draw is right. Yeah, look, and it's probably similar as well. Like, Louth have been on the opposite side of the draw the last couple of years as well because of Leinster as well. So it probably is.
Yeah. And one thing as well, Aaron, I don't want to offend any Clare football fans or anything, but the frank reality is Louth have actually put it up to bigger opposition. They've got to an All-Ireland quarter-final, got to a preliminary quarter-final. Even Kildare managed to get to preliminary quarter-final, beat Roscommon and things like that as well. You look at even Sligo, they got a point on the board by drawing against Kildare when they were in Sam Maguire as well. My issue with Clare, they've gone 2 years now without getting a point in the All-Ireland. They could go a third year in a row. And you're thinking, like, do sides like Kildare, Louth, Offaly deserve their chance more in Clare this All-Ireland series, considering how easy it is for Clare to get into the All-Ireland series each and every season. So it's worth pointing that out as well. I just think something needs to be done about it.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah. Like, and it's one of them things. Like, Louth have proven that they belong at All-Ireland level. Like, Clare have been there now the last couple of years, and if anything, it's nearly more of a detriment to Clare football that they keep going into the All-Ireland series and keep getting hammerings. Do you know what I mean? I actually think it would nearly be better for them to go into the Tailteann Cup and possibly have a chance at winning that trophy. You know, they'd definitely be one of the favourites. You know, but it is, yeah, I suppose it's just one of the many quirks that is the All-Ireland Championship. Galway beat Roscommon 124 to 18 points. Very comfortable in the end for Galway, and a very disappointing performance from Roscommon. Gavin was saying here earlier the Roscommon performance was absolutely dreadful. Look at how Cork and Monaghan performed. No excuses because it's a Division 2 team. And Gavin also says, considering how flat some of the players' performances were, why were some of the under-20s from previous years like Shane McGinley or Adam McDermott not given a chance? And Gavin also says, I remember in 2023, Aaron said Roscommon improved under Burke compared to McStay and Cunningham after the Armagh game, but 2 years later, we've kind of just regressed, to be honest. Yeah, it has been a sharp regression, it seems, for Roscommon over the last year or two. But yeah, your thoughts on this game? Very, very comfortable in the end for Galway in a weekend where a lot of people expected that this could be a potential banana skin for Galway.
Yeah. To be fair, I do think that Galway, I had this inkling that Galway were going to win comfortably in this game, and just Roscommon's form in Division 2 and obviously in previous games didn't fulfill me with confidence whatsoever. You looked at it in the cold light of day. I think after round 3 against Monaghan, they had, I think it was 5 games of the league plus the game against London. They won 2 out of their last 6 games, and those were to London and against Cork, where, like, the Cork football fraternity was nowhere to be seen because the hurling fans kind of packed out the stadium that night, and Roscommon it was kind of degrading on the Cork footballs that night, and Roscommon ran asunder on us, and then that was it. London obviously are a Division 4 team. Roscommon are, expected to beat London, no disrespect, obviously. But when you look at the other games, lost to Meath, lost to Cavan, even drawing to Westmeath when they kind of had to win. They got lucky in the end, obviously, to go up, but they needed to win that game against a Westmeath team on 0 points. You kind of have to be winning that game, and they just didn't. Against Monaghan and Croke Park, I didn't watch it. I was watching the hurling between Tipperary and Limerick. I was watching highlights of this game, but the game I did watch for Roscommon, the game against Monaghan in the Division 2 final, it was almost like even in 2-pointers, Roscommon were forcing them 4-6 shots even when they weren't on, and Monaghan just looked a lot more comfortable in the Croke Park turf than Roscommon did. And I think that was something to be worried about coming into this game as well. And even if you look at Roscommon scores in this game and in the championship overall, other than Dermot and Kieran Morton and Ben O'Carroll, who has really stepped up for Roscommon in this championship or at the end of the league campaign? Not really anybody, which is a real negative for them. I think Galway were pretty comfortable, like after Matthew Tierney's goal, which was kind of a lucky bounce, obviously after Sean Kelly hit the post from a pointed effort. It was almost like Galway were very, very comfortable. They were kind of going through the paces at that particular moment. Look, you have to give credit to the likes of Rob Finnerty, who finished with 8 points, 6 from play, very good performance from him. Matthew Tierney as well, even without Shane Walsh in the team. Paul Conroy with 2-2-pointers, very well taken. Killian McDade coming back into form for Galway. And I think that was a positive performance from a Galway point of view. But for Roscommon, like, I don't know where to go for in the All-Ireland series now. They'll probably be seeded in Bowl 3 for the All-Ireland group stage draw. Is there an argument to say Roscommon won't even make it out of the group, considering the form they're on at this present moment of time? If they are in a tricky group, I'd really worry for Roscommon considering the form they're on. And Gavin makes a very good point there. Monaghan really put it up to Donegal. Cork really put it up to Kerry. And that momentum for those two sides in particular will carry on into the championship. And if Meath could put it up to Dublin next week, there's really no excuse for Roscommon here. So I do think Roscommon, look, they're in a serious predicament at this present moment in time. I don't know what the situation is with Davy Burke's contract. Is this his last year? Obviously, Gavin would know more about it than we would. But he's on serious thin ice, I think, at the moment, Davy Burke. That was a worrying performance for Roscommon, worrying set of form as well. That's only 2 wins out of possible 7, 4 losses and 7. That's pretty bad form. And I'd be worried if I'm a Roscommon fan.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it just I don't know. Like I remember Roscommon when Davy Burke first came in, and there was a fearlessness about them. Like when they were kind of going through that league campaign, and then obviously when they beat Mayo and Connacht as well, like they just looked bang up for it. They didn't look afraid of anyone. They were proper like going for the games. And they just looked bang up for it. Whereas now, like in the last kind of 2 years, although they have had the odd kind of good performance here or there, like maybe when they beat Tyrone or when they drew with Dublin. In Croke Park a couple of years ago. Like, I don't know, I think the word overcoach has been mentioned a lot with Roscommon, and I would kind of agree with that. Like, I feel like at times they were overplaying the ball. They would get themselves into attacking positions, but not take the chance on. And there just seems to be like they looked afraid in some ways to maybe take the chance or take the risk. And it's one thing I have noticed with Roscommon over a couple of years where they're very easy to play against, and teams seem to beat them very comfortably a lot of the time. And you know, even you think back to the All-Ireland quarter-final last year against Armagh. I know Armagh went on to win the All-Ireland, but it was kind of similar where it was just very easy for Armagh and Roscommon not taking enough risks, maybe focus too much about what the opposition are doing rather than what they're good at themselves. And I think in some ways that's holding them back. And Sean says here, is this the ending of Davy Burke's tenure? They don't seem to be going nowhere fast and are only regressing with a great panel of players. And Gavin says here, Galway have been building a large squad. Mayo and Roscommon just haven't. I think that's why Galway are kicking on. And Mikey says here about Mayo and Roscommon's coaching teams have gone stale. Time for change soon. Yeah, it is a little bit worrying there from a Roscommon point of view. And we were speaking of Mayo there. They beat Leitrim 20 points to 13. Kind of incredible that this game was actually closer than the Galway Roscommon game in terms of points margin. Like, you know, who would have predicted that kind of leading into this weekend? And Keane says here, a super performance by Leitrim. Nobody gave us a chance against Mayo in the Connacht semi-final, only to be beaten by 7 points is some achievement for Leitrim, who had a league campaign to forget. Yeah, it was kind of incredible. Like I wasn't watching, I know the game was on G8 Plus. And it was kind of I was keeping an eye on the score. I just thought this was going to be an absolute hiding, so I didn't really see any reason to tune into it. But when I seen the game was as close as it was at half time, I was like, right, maybe I'll turn this on and see what happens. And to be fair to Leitrim, like fair play, like they deserve huge amount of credit here. Barry McNulty was phenomenal. And again for Mayo, like I don't think they kicked the 2-pointer in the game, which is bizarre. Like I don't think they've kicked the 2-pointer in this game or the Sligo game. Some worrying signs there from a Mayo perspective.
It is, yeah. And I was just going to mention that point as well, Aaron. So great minds do think alike. Yeah, you look. I discussed it with Liam and with Seamus on my own podcast last week. If anything, Mayo have to, if they're going to take anything out of this Leitrim game, they have to get more comfortable with taking 2-pointers. 0 2-pointers again. It's worrying. I guess it looked horrendous conditions up in Carrick and Shannon. So you may cut them a bit of slack there, but it just looked very, very stale from a Mayo point of view. It looked very, very poor. And Ryan O'Donoghue got 9 points, and he's the current joint top scorer in the championship. But yet again, he was the top scorer of the championship last year. It's way too much reliance on one guy. And even when you look at other than Ryan O'Donoghue's 9 points, you had Jordan Flynn, Jack Hardy, and Paul Towie all on 2 points who were decent enough footballers, but they need to take it to another level from their point of view. And I'd be worried for Mayo going to this final against Galway. Galway seem to be going on very, very steadily. They seem to be zooming like a train. Mayo, on the other hand, seem to be stalling. And that is a negative for Kevin McStay, I'd imagine, as well. Maybe they'll prove us wrong in the next few weeks, but if they get a hiding off Galway in the Connacht final, what sort of confidence will they go into the All-Ireland series with that then? I'd be really, really worried for Mayo in terms of the Connacht final in general. But there is 2 sides to every story. You have to give a lot of credit to Leitrim for getting as close as they were in this game. Barry McNulty, as you mentioned there, Darren Cox had a good performance, so did Tom Pryor. Reardon O'Rourke had a good performance with a point to add as well. So Leitrim deserve a lot of credit, considering not just the stuff that went on the pitch in Division 3, but the stuff that went on off it with them pulling out of a game against Fermanagh. You have to give them a lot of credit. And you mentioned it there, Aaron. It is incredible the more you think about it. This game was closer than the Roscommon and Galway game, which is mad. It actually is. And I don't know, would you give more credit to Leitrim or more, criticism to Mayo? But all in all, that is an incredible statistic in its own right. But look, Leitrim deserve a lot of credit. That is a good performance from them, and hopefully that will give them a lot of confidence going to the Cup. They'll be in C3 in that group stage. Hopefully they could get a nice draw and progress to the preliminary quarterfinal at least. But as for Mayo, for later on down the summer, Aaron, I'd be particularly worried about them, especially with the 2-pointer thing. They have to start getting comfortable with 2-pointers sooner rather than later.
Yeah. Keane says here, Barry McNulty was massively impressed for Leitrim. He had a super game and topped off with a super performance by winning the Man of the Match award. Positive news for Leitrim. We hope, absolutely. And hopefully, I think it is clear Leitrim do have good footballers in the county, and I know they've had injuries, and as you said, everything else has gone on behind the scenes, but they do have good players there. And I don't think they're as poor as what the league made out. So hopefully now they can kick on a bit more. Sean says likewise with Roscommon. I don't think Mayo are going anywhere with the current coach and ticket. They're playing like they were in the 2010s with a generational team with the hand pass and move style. The game has changed, especially with the new rules. Yeah, it's spot on. It still feels like Mayo are trying to play that way, and even they played it better under James Horan as well. There was more intensity. With the way they're playing now, they seem to keep the ball a lot longer. It's kind of similar in some ways to Roscommon in some respects, the way they're playing. Gavin says Leitrim clearly missed the home ground in the league. Still think they would have gone down, but wouldn't have been as comfortable. And Mikey says if McNulty stays fit, Leitrim might be able to salvage their season in the Tailteann Cup. Absolutely, definitely some positives to take there from Leitrim, but as you said as well, definitely some concerns for Mayo. Looking at Ulster, Monaghan 21 points, Donegal 23. It was kind of mad that it did end up a 2-point game. It felt like it was far more comfortable for Donegal. I'm not too sure if Monaghan ever actually led in the game. And again, I thought it was similar to Galway Roscommon in a certain aspect, where Monaghan in the first half let themselves down a little bit with some poor shooting. They came back into it big time in the second half, and again, the new rules and the 2-pointers really, really helped Monaghan out in terms of kicking some brilliant ones there. And then you had the Hooter incident at the end as well, which was a little bit mad. But I think all in all, big performance by Donegal, and you would have to say they were the deserved winners.
Yeah, and they look a serious team at this present moment of time as well, comfortably beating Kerry in this performance against Monaghan, who were going into this game with confidence, obviously, after a brilliant Division 2 campaign. It's a brilliant, and away from home at Clonus as well. So very good performance from Donegal, considering all those factors. Kieran Thompson, Padder Morgan was exceptional. Again, 4 points in this game, all for play. Michael Lang, again, 4 points as well. Michael Murphy, the guy doesn't age, does he? Brilliant performance by him, even though he's 2-pointed free, according to some Monaghan fans. It was very, very harsh. The way the free was given, obviously, the Sunday game last night actually didn't show the incident. So, I was watching Cork and Clare, so I honestly don't know what exactly happened. Any Monaghan fans at the comments throw it down below, but apparently it was a controversial incident there for Michael Murphy to get a 2-pointer. So Donegal were very, very comfortable going into the dressing rooms at halftime. But Monaghan, as you mentioned there, I think it was 5 2-pointers in this game, and they definitely reined them in the second half, especially Dizzy Ward. I think it was 2 2-pointers overall, 6 points from play. Micheál Bannigan, 5 points. Conor McCarthy, 3 points. Jack McCarron got a 2-pointer coming on as well. So they seem to be motoring very well, Monaghan, and they looked like they were going to reel Donegal in. Dizzy Ward missed the chance to increase his tally to 8 late on and get the equalising score for Monaghan, but it just drifted wide. And then the Hooter incident. Look, there's 2 sides to this. Number one, David Coldrick is correct by the letter of the law. If the ball goes out of play and it's not kicked into play, if it's not in play when the Hooter it goes off, that's it, game over. So by the letter of the law, David Coldrick is absolutely correct in that. But in terms of the Monaghan players and Gabriel Bannigan himself, a bit of clarity towards the players. Obviously, there were some elements the players didn't know, and then there was, I think, a Mir Ishka walking ahead of Ryan O'Toole, which kind of slowed him down a bit as well, and the clock didn't stop. That was another incident there as well. It's a tricky one for David Coldrick, is it? Do you give the benefit of the doubt there, or do you apply the rules? It's a difficult one, really, and hopefully this sort of incident will be fixed later in the summer. Obviously, unfortunately for Monaghan, it didn't get fixed for this game, but the harsh reality, it is, by the letter of the law, it's the correct decision. But I do think a bit of clarity wouldn't go amiss for the players, for the management, and all those involved as well. Look, it's a learning curve. Something has to be brushed up later on in the next few weeks. But Monaghan will be feeling sick, and rightly so, obviously, over that incident. But at the same time, it's the correct decision.
Yeah, I think so. Like, I think it was, and that was my thinking with it at the time. It was like the ball had already gone out. So yeah, it's just one of those kind of loopholes maybe within the rules that we haven't seen a scenario like that yet. So maybe if it happens again, we'll know a little bit more. Or maybe if that needs to be another tweak, we'll obviously have to wait and see. But yeah, big performance by Donegal, and absolutely they're looking like one of the early pace setters in terms of being one of the favourites for the All-Ireland at this moment in time. They will be playing down in the semi-finals, who'll be Fermanagh 219 to 23 points in Brewster Park. 2 goals in injury time for Down, and I think they scored like 2-5 or 2-4 or something in injury time, or from the 68th minute onwards or something of that nature. So incredible drama. I did hear controversy over one of the goals. I think they were saying maybe it was a throw ball or something of that nature. But overall, big result for Down, because to have been relegated with 6 points, I don't think was, it was disappointing and everything else. But I think you can understand it given how competitive Division 2 was. But to have lost this would have been seen as a massive setback.
Yeah, it probably would have. And but they were 7 points down going into the last few minutes of this, and it looked like Fermanagh were going to win. I was keeping up with this game on the way up to the Cork Kerry game, and I was thinking, oh, geez, Fermanagh are really making road here. And obviously there was the Sam Maguire Tailteann Cup placings. Obviously Cork were on the lower end of that. So if Fermanagh were to get to reach an Ulster final, then Cork would be knocked out of the Sam Maguire Cup. So I was looking at this game tentatively thinking, oh gosh, Down are going to lose this by 8. But to be fair to Down, what a comeback in the end. Daniel Guinness superb with 1-4. Roy McAvoy obviously getting the goal as well. Look, Fermanagh deserve a lot of credit. Conor Love as well with 5 points. And I've been saying it for years, Conor Love is an excellent footballer. And I've seen it at club level for his in the club championship for Fermanagh. And a lot of Fermanagh fans are saying he's an average footballer and things like that. He's a superb baller. And he deserves a lot of praise and minutes in the Fermanagh team. Garvin Jones getting 4 points as well. Sean McNally, brilliant goalkeeper for Fermanagh. I was hearing on the radio, John Kenny's commentary, I think it was, that Sean McNally for Fermanagh and Ronan Burns for Down had stormers or games in net. So both those goalkeepers deserve a lot of credit. Sean McNally, I've seen him over the last years in the Fermanagh shirt in Division 3 finals in Croke Park, games against Cork, things like that. And he's been absolutely excellent for Fermanagh. So for him to put it in a performance like that will raise a few eyebrows. In particular, Darren McGurn, Johnny Cassidy and Lee Cullen also getting in the score sheet heavily as well. Lee Cullen took a boomer of a 2-pointer. It was a brilliant score to give Fermanagh initially in the commanding position. But back came down, Pat Haver getting 4 points. This one over Murdoch, Eugene Brannigan, Danny McGill, all contributors very much so from a down point of view as well. So they deserve a lot of kudos for their performances. So it was a good performance from Fermanagh, just not enough to get over the line, but down. Great fight back ability to get into the semi-final against Donegal. You'd imagine Donegal will have too much for down in terms of that Ulster semi-final next week. Again, you never know, but we'll have to see, obviously. Fermanagh, I'd be very interested to see how they get on the Tailteann Cup, because in the last few seasons, they either do well in the Ulster Championship or they do well in the league, and you're thinking, okay, Fermanagh has some decent players here. They could cause a wreck on a few teams. But then in the Tailteann Cup, they flatter to the sea for some reason by losing teams that they should be beating, the likes of Antrim, the likes of Laois. I think Fermanagh need to, grab this opportunity in the Tailteann Cup and go for the win here, because I think Fermanagh are certainly capable of winning this competition if they obviously put all their eggs into the basket first. And there's nothing to lose. I would say from a Fermanagh point of view, you have the players, you have the manager here, Donnelly, you have hopefully the temperament is there from a Fermanagh point of view. It's just executing it. And I feel like Fermanagh have definitely a chance of winning the Tailteann Cup if they take it seriously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I agree with you as well. Over the last couple of years, for whatever reason, they have been a little bit disappointing when it comes to the Tailteann Cup. And Gavin says here that's a sickener for Fermanagh. Haven't won an Ulster game in 7 years. And what's mad is that was an Ulster semi-final as well. In 2018, they won to qualify for the final. Gavin says the main problem with Fermanagh, they're not consistent. They got 5 points in Division 2 last year, but didn't do much in the Tailteann. They could win it this year if they take it seriously. And Mikey says Fermanagh should have closed that one out. A bit like Cork against Kerry. If Fermanagh take the Tailteann seriously for once, they can win it. They absolutely have a chance. And look, there's some good teams potentially going to be in the Tailteann. We'll obviously have to wait and see. Kildare could be in there. You could have, you will have Offaly in there as well. So there are going to be some good sides in there, but I think Fermanagh definitely do have a good chance in fairness. We'll move on to the weekend's hurling action, and plenty of big talking points in the weekend's hurling games. And look, we'll start with the big one really. Clare 3-21, Cork 2-24. An incredible game really. Cork coming flying out of traps. Kind of cutting Clare wide open, left, right, and centre, running straight through the middle of them. Brian Hayes having a phenomenal game. Alan Connolly as well, that point he scored over his shoulder was nothing short of remarkable. And Cork were, putting the All-Ireland champions to the sword in their own backyard. It was kind of incredible to watch. And 11, 12 points up, I think, maybe at half time. They were absolutely cruising. And you were thinking this could be really ugly for Clare if they don't get their act together. But then the second half comes and they absolutely blow Cork out of water themselves then. They come roaring back. Obviously, you have the Shane Barrett red card as well. Late goal from Peter Duggan. Obviously, the 2 goals at the start of the second half as well. And Clare come rallying back. And in the end, it ends in a draw. But an incredible game. What were your thoughts?
Well, it's one that certainly got away, Aaron. I'll put it that way. It's so frustrating because the first half was so perfect in it. It was an excellent performance from Cork point of view. It was an excellent showing with Brian Hayes getting 2 goals. Obviously, Hoggy was well on form as well. Dar Fitzgibbon. It all seemed to click in the first half. Tim O'Mahony was dominating midfield, and Clare just weren't getting enough in the forward line. I think they had 4 points for play in the first half as well, and they just weren't at kind of the race of it. But then when the second half hit, a few combining factors. I would say number one, it was maybe Clare hit Cork hard in terms of quality, first of all, in terms of the goals from Ian McCarthy, first of all, and then David Reedy goal. Obviously, they're avoidable from a Cork point of view. Kieran Joyce has been excellent over the last few years, but soloing the ball and then losing it, and then Clare go down the other end and get the goal through Ian McCarthy. It's just, it was very poor from a Cork point of view, the way we conceded that goal. And then the second goal for David Reedy, it's a long ball into the area. Cork should be dealing with that a lot better. But Clare get the goal at the end. And then the sending off for Shane Barrett. Look, just again, 2 sides of the coin here, Aaron. First of all, I will say, look, it's a red card. You can't elbow a guy in the jaw. Look, it's excessive force. It is a red card. I know Shane would probably reflects on the errors of his ways in the dressing room afterward. But at the same time, David Reedy and the rest of the Clare team, in my honest opinion, goaded the likes of Shane Barrett, the likes of Brian Hayes, the likes of Alan Connolly into these challenges in the second half. That's my honest view on it. And Brian Lohan might have said to these lads in the dressing room, lads, if we annoy Cork here, we could get a guy sent off and we have a chance of coming back into this game. I honestly think that's what Clare's kind of tactic was in the second half, obviously with the brilliant comeback and the bring the blood and thunder and things like that. But you have to take that into consideration as well. Yes, it's within the rule book, you're allowed to do it. You're allowed to goal players and things like that. But that's what Clare were doing. And I've seen a lot of Clare fans say on social media, Cork bottled it and Cork aren't good enough to win the All-Ireland and things like that. And the second half showed they aren't good enough to win the All-Ireland, and Clare showed why they're All-Ireland champions. There was that element as well. And you have to take that into consideration as well. The goal from Peter Duggan, outstanding finish. But again, Cork should be doing a lot better. Maybe Patrick Collins was a bit swayed and I don't know what he was doing on his line at that particular moment. Then Clare come back into the game properly with the Tony Kelly point and then the equalising point later on. And when Aaron Shanahan won that free, which David really popped over, thought that was it. We're going to lose in this here. And then obviously Decky Dawson gets the point to level it in the end, which to be honest, only was a fair result in the end to get. And a lot of Clare fans again, I'd say on social media were saying it was over the time limit, over the 4-minute time limit. But let's not forget, Michael Duignan said in commentary, it should have been about 6 or 7 minutes of extra time. So maybe the ref was thinking that all right, and he played a little bit of extra minutes in terms of to level that playing field a small bit. But look, a draw, both sides will probably be disappointed over. Clare for their first half performance, Cork for their second half performance. It is a point on the board. Thankfully, for their point of views, that Limerick can take both through the other game later on that day. But in terms of the game itself, I think both sides would be very, very disappointed in terms of the way they drew that game. Clare for the first half display and Cork for the second.
Yeah, absolutely. Brian says here, Munster hurling never disappoints. What an incredible, amazing weekend of hurling. And Cork forwards were on fire in the first half, and second half Clare went direct and caused Cork problems. Yeah, like it is interesting. Like I think for Cork, it's definitely a learning curve in more ways than one. Like I mean, to be so comfortable at halftime and then obviously be caught back. And I do understand what you're saying as well in terms of Cork were probably goaded into making some of them bad challenges and everything else. I think for Cork though as well, like there is still a good bit of inexperience maybe in the team, and I think that's something that they will have to learn a bit more from in terms of not fallen for that kind of thing, and maybe Clare and Limerick have been a bit more like around the block, and they're probably a bit more used to that kind of thing now. So for Cork, it definitely is a learning curve in regards to that, I think. But yeah, like I think like overall, it's like it's not the end of the world really for Cork at the same time. Look, I think as well, it is also good to have that lesson in terms of being so comfortable and then letting a lead slip. You know, if Cork had just ran and won this game by 18, 19, 20 points and then had something like this happen, maybe potentially, I don't know what's after happening there, but yeah, maybe if they had something like that happen a little bit later in the season, you know, Cork could have collapsed and maybe they could have went out of the All-Ireland a little bit prematurely. So, yeah, like there is still positives to take from that as well, I suppose.
Yeah, I see what you're saying there. Like if this happened in a Munster final or an All-Ireland semi-final, then there's no coming back from it. And I do think, yeah, it is a lesson learned, and the players need to calm themselves in those sorts of situations as well, and add a bit of bite as well. And I see what your point is on Clare and Limerick. Every kind of niggle stuff off the ball they would get going into, like the way that Adam Hogan was goading Hoggy in the league, and Adam Hogan was doing the same thing yesterday as well. A few of the Clare backs were at it as well, a few of the Clare forwards, even David Reedy for the Shane Barrett sending off. It was clear what they were doing. Like it was to rile the Cork players up, and our players kind of need to cop onto that strategy as well. If we are to get up to the top level of hurling, it's a nasty side of the game, obviously. Limerick are experts at it. Clare are probably the second in command of it. Cork need to get up there as well if they are to contend for All-Irelands. And I see your point there. If this happened later on in the championship, we might not be coming back from it. But it's the first game in Munster. Cork have a home game to rectify that against Tipperary next week. they could easily have 3 points on the board by this time next week, which would be a positive. And there's a lesson learned, obviously. And obviously, number one, to calm themselves, and number two, they need to build kind of a backbone and a kind of, excuse my French here, a bit of shithousery. Cork need to do that in the next few weeks to compete with the likes of Clare, to compete with the likes of Limerick, and ultimately get the Liam McCarthy at the end of the summer, which will be Pat Ryan's aim, I'd imagine. So Cork need to start kind of doing that. They need to learn a bit about the dark arts, because that's what Clare and Limerick are clearly doing. And I do think that's something that Cork need to install into their DNA in the next few weeks, make them hard to beat. Have a bit of, Dermot O'Sullivan about you. Have a bit of Donald Hughes, like Sean O'Halpine. You need those kind of mentality-based players to get inside the opposition heads and know you're in a battle with them. That's what Cork need to do in the next few weeks to improve as a team. Hopefully this is a lesson to them, and hopefully they will kind of harder those kind of skill sets in the next few weeks. But as I said previously, Aaron, it's not good in probably the ethos of Gaelic games to instill that kind of elements of the game inside them, but it's something they have to do in the next few weeks to get an All-Ireland at the end of it.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Sean says here, great comeback from Clare, but I think they will be knocked out of Munster. They were fortunate with the red card, and their forward line looked toothless in the first half. Brian says both teams will take a lot of positives, and Tim says here, hearing this talk from Cork lads, get over it. Nobody's going to stand back unless you produce lovely hurling. And he also says Clare and Limerick do it to Cork because you're easily roiled. What do you make of that?
Maybe so, but Clare and Limerick have to. A lot of people have been going. This is my kind of annoyance, really, on social media and things like that. A lot of people will notice the way Limerick do it, and they'd jump on the train to criticise Limerick for this sort of thing. The Seamus Flanagan incident with Niall O'Leary, some of the incidents last year with Limerick, and some of the incidents with Garrett Hagerty and Kyle Hayes and all them players. And a lot of people criticise Limerick over that. My problem on social media, not enough do it for Clare either. And it needs to be taken seriously. Clare do it the exact same as Limerick. And I do agree with that comment as well. Cork are easily roiled, and I think Pat Ryan has to. They have all the skill sets in terms of building a decent defence and building a lethal attack and doing well in midfield as well. The next thing now is to build a bit of backbone. And I agree with the comments completely. I think Cork are easily roiled in some games. Tipperary didn't do it in the league final enough, because Tipperary, again, have young players and they're new to this sort of high level of hurling game with the likes of Darragh McCarthy and Dylan Walsh and all them young players for Tipperary. They're excellent hurlers, but they aren't experienced as of yet. So that was kind of a different challenge for Cork. Then when you're going to the Lions Den and Ennis, you have to build a backbone. And I do think these Cork players need to do that. Obviously, I've said this before, and I'll say it again, I'm like a broken record. It's not good to have this kind of game plan and the ethos of Gaelic games, but it's something Clare and Limerick are developing, and Cork need to do it as well to compete for Liam McCarthy later on in the summer. I do agree with the comments, but my annoyance really is Clare aren't pulled back for those sorts of instances the way Limerick are or any other team are.
Yeah. Brian says Cork are a development team and been extremely up to now. This will bring on an awful lot of learnings. And John says Clare won't be far off All-Ireland again with Shane O'Donnell back. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously Clare were hugely written off coming into this game. A lot of people saying maybe they wouldn't get out of Munster. Even some people even still saying that in the comments. They obviously didn't have Shane O'Donnell. They still had a lot of other players there, and Aidan McCarthy, Tony Kelly, who, let's not forget, was unfit for the majority of the Munster Championship last year, and it was actually in the later part where he sort of came back and produced his best form. So does this prove that Clare are certainly not going to go away? Obviously Munster is extremely competitive. We'll get on to Limerick and Tip in a moment, but it certainly doesn't feel like Clare are going to go away and maybe lie down like a lot of people thought they were going to.
No, it doesn't at all. And even the impact off the Clare bench was very impressive yesterday. The likes of Ian Galvin coming on, Aaron Shanahan, really caused a lot of problems for Cork. And Peter Duggan obviously really did in the second half. I think what was worrying from a Clare point of view was their first half performance and how flat they were. Obviously, Brian Lohan and the team need to learn from that and pretty quick as well. Like they go into, well, I would say if I said the Lions Den was Ennis, they're going to another Lions Den next week in Walsh Park against Waterford, and Waterford will not let Clare off easy. And what I will say about, say what you want about the Waterford team and things like that, and they struggle in Munster and they were Division 1B this year. Waterford are a team that will get stuck into Clare, in Walsh Park in particular. And if the crowd gets behind the Daisha in Walsh Park, especially with the tight ground that it is, Clare could be in trouble. So I do think Clare need to improve in their first half performance next week against Waterford, because you see what Waterford did to Cork last year in Walsh Park. They made it difficult for them. I do think they'll make it difficult for Clare next week. I don't think it's slam dunk for Clare to win next week. I do think Waterford will really, really challenge them. In positives for Clare, I do think Tony Kelly in this game in particular, he was quiet in some aspects of the game, but in yesterday's game he had 5 shots, 100% shot accuracy. He converted every shot that he took, which is a positive. David Reedy 1-2, converted every shot that he took. Aidan McCarthy did well enough on the frees as well, 1-7 overall, 1-1 for play. They had 4 different free takers, Clare, which was quite interesting, in Reedy, Rogers, Kelly, and Aidan McCarthy, which they're spreading around a bit, which is kind of a positive, I guess. David Reedy and Tony Kelly took all their free opportunities, which was a positive for them as well. Peter Duggan 1-1 overall, 50% shot accuracy, which wasn't great, to be honest, but you could see the goal danger that he does have. David Fitzgerald didn't have his best game yesterday, and I think Michael Duyden did mention in the co-commentary as well. He did mention that Clare were a bit rusty in the first half, and that was to be expected because Clare weren't at their full pelt at the league and they didn't have their best players available. But then when the second half rolled around, when they started to get in the groove, you could see what good side they are in terms of hurling ability. So I do think Clare, they're not gone as of yet. But that Waterford game next week is not a slam dunk for Clare. I do think it's going to be difficult to get out of Walsh Park with a win. Should be interesting next week.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and that's the thing about Munster. Like it does feel absolutely wide open between all 5 of them. And Tipperary Limerick was no different as well. 2-23 apiece is how it finished in the end. Tipperary's way for a win over Limerick in the championship still goes on, but by God, they came very, very close here. And Limerick, to be fair, showed the same kind of resilience that you would expect to see with Limerick, where when it looked like they were going to lose the game, they came rallying back and nearly almost won it. But cracking game between these two.
Yeah, really good game, really enjoyable, and there was a bit of bite obviously to this game as well as the Cork Clare game at the start of this as well. There was a few brawls happening. Tipperary really made it tough for Limerick at some stages in the game, which is a positive from a Tip point of view. They, unlike Cork, obviously, we mentioned before, Tip are building a backbone. The likes of Owen Connolly, Brian O'Mara, they were getting stuck into Limerick from the very off in this one, and that is a positive for Tip moving forward. And not just that, not just them, their abilities to deal with the aggression in Limerick. Their shooting accuracy was superb yesterday, Tip. I think it was 78%. I think they converted 25 shots out of 32, which was absolutely superb. 2-14 from play as well. Darren McCarthy in his first championship game, in his championship senior debut. What a talent he is. And a lot of people were saying, is Darren McCarthy overrated in the league? Doesn't score much from play. Was quite enough against Cork. Shut up the doubters yesterday. Absolutely superb performance from the young lad. And he has a future, no doubt about it, in the Tipperary jersey. And the likes of Jake Morris, 100% shot, or not 100%, sorry, 80% shot accuracy for Jake Morris. John McGrath took his 2 goals absolutely brilliantly and showed that he is still a goal threat in this Tipperary team. Owen Connolly, in terms of long-range pucking, that was superb in the first half. That was an exhibition. And he showed his defensive abilities and his long free abilities in this game, all molded into one. Very good display from him. Brian O'Mara, excellent. Jason Ford chipped in with a score as well. Craig Morgan, Alan Tynan. Like, they were very, very good all over the pitch, Tipperary. Even Noel McGrath coming onto the pitch and getting a score as well. And he's now, I think, along with Brendan Cummins, the record championship appearance holder for Tipperary. And congratulations to Noel for that. But then again, 2 sides to every story. I wouldn't say a brilliant performance for Limerick, but in terms of getting back to this game, when it looked at some stages that it was going away from them, you have to give them a lot of credit for coming back into this game. And it was the young guns. Shane O'Brien with 1-4, Adam English with 1-2, me as well. The Adam English goal, cheeky man. Like that's like you rarely see that in hurling, but when you see it, in a way, I know a lot of people are probably shooting for tip because they were kind of the underdogs in the game, but those sorts of goals kind of put a smile on your face. I don't know, is that the same for you, Aaron? It's just, obviously the goalkeeper, Barry Hogan, wouldn't like that at all, but look, it's the name of the game. Absolutely superb. From Adam English, Shane O'Brien was a colossal in full forward as well. Kyle Hayes, a good performance. Tom Morrissey and Galway Hagerty in the wing forward positions coming back in the team did very, very well. Barry Nash even came up and got a point. Aaron Gillan actually had 100% shot accuracy as well yesterday. So you had Aaron Gillan and Tony Kelly who both having 100% shot accuracy. Jake Morris with 80%. This is where it's at, Aaron. This is Munster Championship hurling. That is superb shooting accuracies from all those players involved, and they deserve a lot of credit in terms of the opening game of Munster. When a lot of teams might be a bit rusty, they might be taking a bit of time to get molded into the Munster Championship for this season. But 10 players to get shooting accuracies like that, superb. And Limerick, even I know Tipperary at 78% shot accuracy overall. Limerick at 67%, 25 shots taken out of a possible 37. Very good from them. And I know Nicky Quaid at some stage looked a bit, I would say, well, obviously he looked unfit because like you're coming back from an ACL after 5 months. That's a minor miracle. Well, I wouldn't say minor miracle, a major miracle in its own right. But for Limerick to retain 25 puckouts out of a possible 32, like you could see the influence that Nicky Quaid has on the team when he is back in there. So there's a few positives for Limerick, probably more positives from the Tipperary point of view, showing that they can compete at this level and they are not going to be easy meat for Cork next week, even in Páirc Uí Chaoimh. So I think both sides will be coming out of this with a lot of positives moving forward. And for Limerick in particular, I think there's more to come from this team. I think there's still like a few bits where John Coyley would have been disappointed with, but we all know about this Limerick team. They grow into the championship as it goes on, and this year will be no different in my opinion.
Yeah, Sean says if Tip can stay consistent, they will get out of Munster. They have great gems in Darren McCarthy, John McGrath, and Jake Morris. Shane O'Brien really came on in this game with Peter Casey off the bench. The bench is deadly. This was a magnificent Tip performance against Limerick. You have to admire the enthusiasm, energy, and hunger. And yeah, like just on that, like it feels like it's the most competitive the Munster Championship has ever been. Like you could really make a case for any team to progress, and you can make a case really for any team maybe to get to a final as well, to get to a Munster final. Like if you have to call it here now in terms of the 3 teams that would progress, who would you be edging towards? Because it's such a difficult question to answer, isn't it?
Really, really is, yeah. I think Cork and Limerick probably will make it out. And then third place will be between Clare and Tipperary. And I think the difference will be Clare and Tip's game is on in Ennis. So I think that will edge it to Clare. I think Clare will get third place, but Tip, they're not going away at all. And worth noting as well, don't forget, Waterford still have to play next week as well. We'll see what they can offer. So it's a tough one to predict.
Yeah, like if Waterford get a result against Clare, that just throws it completely wide open. Then all of a sudden you'd be thinking you wouldn't be sure what way it's going to go, to be honest with you. But I probably would agree with you as well. I think Clare probably as well, in like you saw them against Cork being able to turn that around. Like in the big moments, they've been there and done it more so than this Tip side. I know Tip do have All-Ireland winners in their team as well, but they probably do have more younger players in there now than some of the older guards. So yeah, I probably will go with Clare to progress there as well. Moving across to Leinster, Kilkenny 324, Galway 21 points. Very comfortable result for Kilkenny. Very flat game as well. Galway were very, very poor, weren't in the game at all. And yeah, it was just comfortable for Kilkenny. And even at that as well, I felt like Kilkenny didn't really get out of third gear as well. They felt very comfortable in the game.
Just in terms of the game overall, like the attendance for this game in Nolan Park was worrying for the Leinster Championship. And what I will say in terms of the game and in terms of the coverage and in terms of, I would say, the game overall, it didn't feel like a championship game at all. And I think that's a worry for the Leinster Championship moving forward. First on Galway, geez, I know this is one year where I genuinely don't know where this Galway team are at. In the league, they looked terrible against Tipperary first day out, but then they turned around with a brilliant performance against Clare, brilliant performance against Kilkenny, and they seem to be getting a bit of momentum. Then against Cork, they look pretty bad. In Páirc Uí Chaoimh, their defence looked well open, and in this game, the game was, to be honest, like at half time, it was almost like Kilkenny were so comfortable in this, and it was almost like I think Gary King's team were kind of questioning, where's the challenge going to come in Leinster? If it's not going to come from Galway, who's it going to come from? I do genuinely think Dublin, and we'll look at Dublin and Offaly in just a sec, but I think those two counties are well able to put it up to Kilkenny. And that is a worry for Galway, because there is a serious kind of situation here where they won't actually get out of Leinster for a second year in a row, which I think that will be detrimental to Galway. To Micheál Donoghue's come in as a manager as well. I know he would have considered this job as a lot of work coming in, because like Galway looked well off it last year. Well off it. And they don't seem to be improving fourfold at all this year, which is negative for Galway. And it is really worrying. Like even when you look at the likes of Conor Whelan scoring just a point in this one, that's one of your key players. It just looked very flat for Galway point of view. I think one positive you could take, and maybe I'm nitpicking at straws here, Carl Mannion scoring 10 points, and maybe he could be the leader in this Galway attack, but other than that, there wasn't much. As for Kilkenny, look, they could play what's in front, only play what's in front of them. Owen Cody scoring 1-5, Martin Jones scoring 1-2 after being top scorer from play in Division 1A. That's positive for his form. Fiona McKessie getting his first championship start for Kilkenny with 4 points as well. Jordan Malloy with 3. Adrian Mullen getting the goal before he got injured as well. I think there might be a negative for Kilkenny in that kind of light as well with the injuries. Adrian Mullen going off injured. A few players injured. Obviously, TJ being injured before the game as well. That's going to be negative for Kilkenny moving forward. And, well, maybe not, because maybe Leinster won't be as competitive as we all believe. And Kilkenny will play Antrim next week, which should be a win for Kilkenny, even if they put out maybe a second string team or whatever. But look, Kilkenny can play what's in front of them. It's a good win. They'll brush it under the carpet. They won't see it as a brilliant win or whatsoever. I think the main story in this are two ones. Number one, where is the Leinster Championship at with the attendance and the promotion? And number two, where are this Galway team going to end in the All-Ireland Series as soon as the Leinster Championship ends?
Yeah, well, I seen like All Irish Sport, they posted earlier that 18,411 people across all 3 games. That was the combined attendance for the Leinster Championship games this weekend. So, yeah, there just seems to be very little buy-in. I think, it's probably just one of them things. Like Munster is obviously where it's at, and you've the highest standards there. It doesn't feel like that in Leinster. And there seems to be a lot of, bigger gaps between a lot of the teams as well. And like last year, Leinster was actually fairly entertaining as well. Like, I mean, there was a lot of teams that were in the run-in for a Leinster final. It wasn't like Kilkenny and Galway or anything like that, ran away with it to a Leinster final. There was a lot of teams kind of in the mix going into the final couple of games. But yeah, the buy-in just doesn't really seem to be there. And whether that's because of, extra games, meaning extra money, and, maybe fans trying to save themselves for Crow Park and everything else, it's kind of hard to know really why there has been so little interest. But as you said, yeah, like Kilkenny were absolutely brilliant, but Galway just so flat, and it looks like they haven't evolved at all under Micheál Donoghue. Like, again, just floating aimless long balls into a 2-man full forward line. Like, it's just, they don't look like they've changed at all since Henry Shefflin has been there, and they don't look like they've progressed at all. And it is year one for new management, so you can excuse it a little bit. But as you said, like and this will be a second year in a row where they haven't got Iowa Leinster. But let's not forget, was it 2019 as well where they didn't get Iowa Leinster as well? So like it's like this is becoming a common occurrence for Galway in the round robin.
Yeah, and you look at Kilkenny's kind of consistency in the Leinster Championship, and you compare that to Galway's, even not just in the top 3, leave that for a sec. Kilkenny are now on for, I think, 6 in a row in Leinster. And you look at their consistency in the Leinster Championship this particular moment in time, and then you look at Galway's. Galway haven't won a Leinster Championship since 2018. As mad as that is, it's true. And I think, like you mentioned, you were banging the money there, Aaron. I think as well for Galway, they look way too predictable. You knew what they were going to do. As soon as the ball was thrown in, you knew what they were going to do. 2-man full forward line. Try get the best out of Conor Whelan, try get the best of Carl Mannion, and hope for the best. And Galway, for a high-level team that Galway are supposed to be, you cannot have those plan A's and don't think of a plan B afterwards. You cannot do that in this hurling championship. And as you said there, the Leinster championships, yes, the attendance isn't there, but it's getting more competitive in those sort of regions, not just Kilkenny for a sec. You have Dublin, you have Offaly, you have Wexford. All those three sides are capable of beating Galway on their day. Like Offaly have Galway next week. I would not be shocked if Offaly beat Galway next week.
Yeah.
At this moment in time. And it is worrying for Bial Donoghue. If he loses that game, it's going to be an awful lot of pressure on him as Galway manager.
Yeah, Tim says here, resurgence. Offaly and Wexford or Dublin potentially getting decent teams together. It could mean a bit of trouble for Galway if they don't wake up a bit. Yeah, crazy stuff there. But it'll be interesting to see how what happens as the Leinster Championship goes on. Looking at some other games then in the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship, we did have a big result in the end for Dublin, who beat Offaly 125 to 219. A game that really could have went the way of Offaly. Like, I wasn't at the game, and you were kind of keeping an eye on the score and everything else, and it was looking like Offaly could potentially go on and win the game. But a late goal from Ronan Hayes, a couple of late points as well, towards the end. Dublin just about getting out of jail there.
Yeah, and to be fair, I do think that's a good win for Dublin to get, considering what Offaly did to them in Division 1B and hitting them with a last-minute point in Croke Park. That's a good win to get. Look, Offaly are not going to be slouches. I've said this previously, they are a developing team. You could see the potential in Offaly at this present moment in time. And yeah, that was a good showing from them. The likes of, obviously, Brian Doyle getting 8 points in this one, Oisin Kelly getting 1-1, Killian Sampson getting 1-1. They seem to be going along very, very nicely. Obviously, Ronan Hayes getting the goal to kind of derail that momentum a small bit. But yeah, to be honest, like, Dublin didn't look too comfortable in this game up until obviously the last point from John Henderson. They looked very, very ropey at times. So it was a good result to get for them in part and part and move on to the Wexford game next week with a lot of confidence. I'd imagine Brian Hayes getting 3 points as well, Donald Burke getting 4 points, Sean Curry, great to see him on the scoreboard with 9 points after his club exploits for the Fianna as well. So yeah, good win overall for Dublin. I don't think it's disaster stations, considering Offaly, you have to take into account, our developing team, and they are a good team, and they will make it difficult for anybody in Leinster at the moment. So I think for Dublin and for Nino Calican, it was just about getting over the line for them. And they got over the line. Fair play to them for that. But I think Offaly, I've said this before and I'll say it again, Offaly will make it difficult for any team that they come across in Leinster.
Yeah, and Liam White says here, Saturday is essentially Galway's most important game of the year. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I think if Offaly win that, I think that's it done for Galway. I don't think they're getting out of Leinster. So like, they have to win that game, in my opinion. Otherwise, I think it's it'll be a long way back to turn it around from there. But speaking of Wexford, there they beat Antrim 224 to 19 points. They did have a man sent off early on, and that threatened to make the game a little bit. I think Jack O'Connor was sent off, threatened to make the game a little bit more vulnerable from a Wexford perspective. But they came through it in the end, and they did avenge the defeat from last year. And in fairness to Antrim, like, they did give this a good go as well, and maybe did make the game a little bit closer than maybe some people had anticipated.
Yeah, you have to give a lot of credit to Antrim for obviously, as Liam said in your podcast last week, they don't travel well at all, and they kind of been that miss in the first half with their performance, obviously, albeit with the Jack O'Connor sending off, and that kind of, derailed Wexford a small bit, but a very good performance from Lee Shin in particular, 16 points. When does he ever stop scoring for Wexford? That's an incredible tally. You have to give credit to the likes of Conor Byrne and Rory O'Connor with 3 points each as well. Keane Burning, Kevin Foley getting on the goal scoring sheet for Wexford. But then again, Antrim did miss a penalty in the first half. I've seen the highlights of the Sunday game. Gerard Walsh missed the penalty in the first half, but like, for Gerard Walsh to even play this game, as Neil McManus mentioned on Sunday game as well, was an achievement in itself, because he did bury his sister last week, and obviously condolences to the Walsh family and all involved there. But for him to come out on the pitch in the Leinster Championship game in high stakes like that is a testament to the man George Walsh is and the hurler he is. So obviously condolences again to his family. But a good win for Wexford overall. They move into the Dublin game now with a win under their belt. And Lee Chin's back now, so I think that's a positive for Wexford moving into the Dublin game next week. But yeah, he started his campaign as good as he started the last campaign, and that's not good for Dublin going into next week. I know Dublin are performing well themselves to a certain extent, but Lee Chin, the way he's performing at the moment, he'll be a serious operator for Dublin to kind of get a leash on.
Yeah, we've a great record against Wexford over the last couple of years as well. But as you said, it will be very, very difficult to get anything there next week. But we'll wait and see what happens. Just running through some games in the John McDonagh. So Laois beat Westmeath 325 to 122. Carlow beat down 623 to 20 points, and big win for Kerry versus Kildare 117 to 19 points. So looking at it there, like Carlow are heavy favourites, and after a big win against a very good downside as well, it's very hard to look past them winning the Joe McDonagh there.
Yeah, considering their form in the league in Division 1B, a crazy enough stat actually. Out of the finalists, Waterford and Offaly, Carlow didn't lose to either of them. They drew against Offaly and they beat Waterford as well. So they have shown this season in League Championship what a serious team they are. Martin Kavanagh got 6 points in this one. Obviously, Chris Nolan was the top scorer for play in Division 1B overall this year. And he carried on that form with a hat-trick in this one with 3-1. So very good performance from him. Obviously, you have the likes of Paddy Boland with 1-1, Ted Joyce with a goal, James Doyle in midfield, I'm very impressed with him. In recent weeks in the League and Championship, he got 1-3 as well. So very good win for Carlow, obviously. For Down, it's kind of maybe a reality check in a small bit to some extent. Like, they did well to get promoted from Division 2 with magnificent achievement for Rowan Sheehan's men at the beat Kildare in that final. They did with skill and endeavour, obviously, and a very good display from them. They do have some good players like Tom McGrattan and Pierce up Crickard, so I'm sure Down will be back later on the Joe McDonagh Cup. Unfortunately for them, this game was kind of a rude awakening in some ways, and it will be difficult to kind of recover for that in next week's round of fixtures. As for Laois and Westmeath, good win for Laois over their rivals. Tomas Keys getting 1-8 in this one. Ben Conroy really impressed with 2-2 for Laois as well. But special mention to Killian Doyle for Westmeath. Westmeath scored 122. Killian got 111. So it does show that Westmeath have some serious scores. David Williams, I don't know, is he going to come back into the team as well? And Kieran Doyle there as well. So Westmeath do have serious players, but it's just about kind of getting a win on the board from their point of view and getting a bit of confidence rolling. They did beat Carlow, funnily enough, in the last round of Division 1B. So maybe confidence is there. It was just a bad day at the office, but well done to Laois. And as for Kerry, what a win for them in Newbridge, 117 to 19 points over Kildare. A result that I wouldn't probably have expected, considering Kerry were way down the table in Division 2. They were near the relegation zone, then they were promotion places. And you had the likes of Fiona McKessie going to Kilkenny, and the likes of Mikey Boyle retiring over the last few years. Shane Conway nowhere to be seen as well. But a massive win for them. Podge Ball getting 1-7 in this one. They do have footballers in this team as well, the likes of Oshie Mansell, Tom Doyle, part of the Dr. Crokes team, obviously, and Luke Crowley, who did well in the Sigerson Cup for Maynooth University. They're all kind of traditional footballers for Kerry. They aren't good enough to make the football team in Kerry, so they're helping out their hurlers, which is a good sign from a Kerry point of view. As for Kildare, that's a terrible defeat to take for them. I'm sure Brian Dowling and his team wanted to win that game, especially at home. But good win for Kerry. Good way to start off the Joe McDonagh Cup in what seemed like a kind of a negative camp to be in, considering their league form, losing to Donegal in Division 2 included. But that's a brilliant win for Kerry. But in all saying that, Aaron, I think it'll be very, very difficult to stop Carlow in this Joe McDonagh Cup campaign.
Yeah, no, absolutely. A big result there for Kerry, and as you said, for Kildare, they might be staring down the barrel of relegation, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Yeah, we'll wrap it up here then. Cheers, anyone who tuned in. Hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure to check out Matthew's channel as well when you get a chance. And until the next one, we will speak to you all later.